All right, well, hello everybody. Welcome to the October Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force meeting. We do not yet have a quorum, so we won't take any action or take any votes. We may be joined by another member, which would get us to a quorum. So in the meantime, we can have a conversation. We just can't. It won't be an official meeting yet. Hopefully, we'll get that. So welcome to Sherry Callanan, Philip Perciello, fellow members of the Clean Energy Task Force, and we have two guests for public audience. We have Susan Olson from the Citizens Climate Lobby and Ray Harris from town staff. So the agenda went around. Grab mine. Okay, first order of business is public audience. So would anyone like to make any comments?
Well, I wanted to follow up on the last meeting, just to say what has happened. I'm pursuing, I had introduced the conversation of a climate emergency declaration, and we sent an outline of what that entails. And between the last meeting and this one, I've initiated conversations with some folks in Simsbury, specifically the Simsbury United Methodist Church Social Justice Committee that has an interest in the subject because of other things that they're addressing. They wanted to put the conversation off until January after the holidays and invite, other parts of the church and the community, have a big discussion. And I think that's great. So that's pending. I had a discussion with Deacon Arthur Miller, who is kind of high profile clergy person from St. Mary's Church, a veteran of the civil rights movement, who is on board. He thinks it's a great idea. And those are the two positive responses I've gotten so far. I've initiated a conversation also with the Farmington River Watershed Association, where I volunteer. I'm going to be part of a presentation to the Rotary Club, not in Simsbury, but Southbury, tomorrow night. And we hope to be able to make a similar presentation in Simsbury and Avon and, wherever there's an interest. So that's what's happening on my end.
Who did you say you're going to present to in Simsbury?
The Simsbury United Methodist Church was going to have a forum in January. We're presenting to the Rotary Club in Southbury. It's Triberry Rotary Club, Southbury, Marlborough, Millbury, and it's down in the southern part of District 5.
Okay. Great.
We want to follow up and make presentations to other Rotary clubs, but this is the first one, so.
All right. Terrific. So the Methodist Church is looking to host a forum in January.
Yeah, in January. They said there's some youth that are really interested in this subject, and I thought, great. Maybe visiting or trying to engage schools would be a direction that I can pursue or explore more.
Great. Well, thank you for all of your legwork.
Yeah, well.
This is not the kind of thing that we would want to do sort of in isolation, right? Where 6 members come up with a declaration of a climate emergency.
Yeah.
Sort of all on our own. You really want to engage, as you're starting to do. There are various stakeholders in town, including and especially, as you say, the youth. That would be really good.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Great. Thank you. Anything else for public audience? All right. Next agenda item is approving the minutes of the September meeting. And we have those from Mike Tenka. Anybody have any changes? I can see a couple things. One is under item 3, update on sustainable CT. Just Leclaire is L-E-E-L-A-I-R. Is there an E on it? Leclaire.
Yeah.
Definitely.
At the end, it's just an R, I believe.
It's L-E.
L-E-C-L-A-I-R.
A-I-R, yep. And then down under 5, residential efficiency campaign, it's North Haven, not New Haven. That's all I've got. I guess we can note those. We cannot approve them. We cannot approve them now. So I guess it's all just kind of a discussion at this point. But we'll table. I'm not even sure if we can table, but we won't act.
Right.
So the next item is really to continue this discussion of both items, the carbon fee and the carbon dividend, fee and dividend, and then the declaration of a climate emergency. And Susan has updated us on some of her conversations. And I think it was after our last meeting, we sent around the document by Citizens Climate Lobby on the declaration of a climate emergency. And there's a lot of good information in there. I don't know if anybody has had any further thoughts or discussions on either of these topics.
When we, at our meeting last month, did we bring up the item to have that for that it would be a good idea for Susan, for your group to present to the Board of Selectmen, I believe, right? Did we not discuss that? Yeah. You're muted, Susan. You're muted.
yeah, the goal is the presentation to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, okay.
But we want to be.
You're pursuing getting on the agenda for that to present to them?
How much community buy-in would you recommend before we try to do that?
That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sherry.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it's something that the Board of Selectmen is familiar with, like already educated on, and are aware of this or not. Because I think that, you know, whether the community has all the information, I don't think is necessarily a requirement to present to the Board of Selectmen. But perhaps it is.
It could also work circular from that and help
right.
amend the case for going forward with this.
Right, because if they're informed, if the Board of Selectmen is already informed about what you're proposing as far as the declaration of a climate crisis, then, you can branch off from that to educate the community even further.
And maybe get some, some buy-in or at least some on the record discussion
Feedback.
about it in the meantime.
There are some students who are members of Citizen Climate Lobby, and that they could be good advocates before the Board of Selectmen, I think.
Absolutely. You could have them join you in your presentation.
Yeah.
Or they could be a part of the public audience before your presentation to advocate for what you're about to say.
Okay.
Yeah, my guess is the board, if they heard your presentation, they would turn to the Clean Energy Task Force and ask us what we think, and they would maybe task us with exploring this and coming back with a recommendation. So I'm not sure, honestly, whether it'd be better to have you guys, Citizens Climate Lobby, be out front proposing this, and then that sort of gives us a reason to have sort of renewed focus on it, or whether we should maybe get our ducks in a row first and then go on more of a to be more aligned. I'm not sure which one. My first instinct was, well, let's think it through ourselves and know what we want to recommend and then go together. But I don't know, maybe having you guys up front might be a better idea.
Well, the reason why I mentioned it is because I thought that we were discussing that it may not necessarily be the direct, something that should be coming from the Clean Energy Task Force directly, because the climate crisis encompasses so much more. It kind of goes beyond, encompasses other issues, I guess is what I'm trying to say, other than clean energy. So that's what I thought was kind of the consensus with the group was, if the Board of Selectmen were to come back to us for our opinion, that'd be one thing, but not necessarily to promote it, that it should be coming from Susan's group to the Board of Selectmen initially.
I guess.
So correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I thought we had discussed, anyways.
Our conversation has been to prepare us for approaching the Board of Selectmen with your recommendations, with your insight, how best to approach this. Possibly with your endorsement of the idea would be great. I think that it might be impactful to have already had some buy-in from the community, so that they would know that other people care about this, not just this little group of people. So that's why I'm pursuing these conversations. I'm not trying to delay the presentation. I'm just trying to be well prepared for it.
Right.
So
I mean, I think in our last meeting, the sense among the task force was, let's give this serious consideration. This is certainly within our rightful role. Give it a fairly thorough review, so that if we were to declare recommend the declaration of a climate emergency, that we would also have with that a series of actions or a series of principles, values that we want to espouse or follow. So I say let's continue to do that. And I guess it's really your call, Citizens Climate Lobby. It's at what point do you feel that you want to get before the Board of Selectmen? But let's continue the conversation. Let's continue to work together and explore what it would mean if we did that.
Okay. If there's anything that we can provide for you to help the conversation, please, let us know. And I want to be available, but I'm not on the committee. So I just, want to follow what you guys are doing and let you know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think the document that you've given us has a lot in there. And we've got some examples of what some other cities and towns have done.
Mm-hmm.
I started to look at it. I haven't done a real detailed review or started to draft. But I think what we might want to start to do is start to put together a kind of a rough draft of a declaration, so that if we were to do this, we're not. It's not an abstract thing. It's like here's a document that we might consider, and we can start to put. The declaration is one thing, but to me, what's more important is what are we then asking the town to do? Are there certain ordinances? Are there policies? Are there investments? And there's a laundry list in the Citizen Climate Lobby, report there. So I would say let's put our heads together. Maybe what I can do is create a kind of a Google Doc that we can start to work on, and look at together. And then, as I say, we'll kind of know what it is we're actually talking about.
Is it helpful for me to be in touch with you guys about what I'm, what I'm doing in the community, or?
Yes. No, I think the way you just updated us on your conversations that you've had in town is that's very helpful for us to know. And I think if we're going to do this, we're going to want to be a part of those conversations with the churches, with the youth, with
that would be very
business
cool.
organizations. Oh, is that?
Yep, Bob.
All right.
Yahoo!
Hey, Bob.
Well, hello. Sorry, a few minutes, but I warned you.
All right, good to see you. We now have a quorum. So we were just having because we didn't have a quorum, we couldn't really make any decisions. So we've just been having a conversation about we had public audience, and Susan Olson updated us on some conversations she has had in town, particularly on the issue of declaring a climate emergency. They include the Methodist Church, who has an environmental group that is looking at it, and they're going to host a forum in January on this topic. They have some youth involved. And then Deacon Art Miller from the Catholic Church, Susan's in conversation with him as well, and he's in support of this idea. So what we were saying is let's start to let's give this serious consideration. Let's start to put together a very rough draft of what the declaration would look like, so that we're not just talking about something abstract. We're actually looking at a document, and we include not only the.
I'm sorry, do we have a copy of a declaration, like a template maybe?
Yeah, the document that Citizens Climate Lobby prepared, and I think I sent it as a follow-up. Susan, you gave it to me, and then I sent it as a follow-up to our last meeting. I can resend it.
Yeah, I was just looking through my email to see if we had received that.
We've got Middletown, New Haven, and New York City, at least those in that. And so, in addition to just the actual declaration that yes, we declare an emergency, we want to start to flesh out what concrete steps are we asking the town to take. So that's where we. That's what we've been talking about, Bob.
Yep. Got it. Susan, was that climate emergency toolkit? That's where the sample declarations were?
Yeah, they're the appendix.
Yeah,
Yep. Okay. Do you
Okay.
have that, Sherry?
yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. If I got it, I was going to send it back.
I can,
It's fine.
If you want to resend it,
okay,
yeah.
All right. It's all good.
let's go back. Bob, now that you're here, we can actually take action.
I was going to say, should we start the meeting? Sorry to hold you
I
guys.
guess we can actually, that would actually be the right thing to do, would be to start the meeting.
Okay, so how about if we say at this moment in time, we are meeting. I call the meeting to order. You want me to drive?
Sure.
All right, so the meeting is called to order at 5:28 p.m. Who's taking notes today?
I am.
Thank you, Sherry. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so it's much better that someone else do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good. We are in session. Public audience. Do we want to rehash anything for public audience or move on into the agenda?
I think we can move on. I mean, I took down notes.
Okay, so let's just, for the record, state that the public audience was held before a quorum was reached, and notes will be included in the meeting minutes. Good? Any objections?
Yep.
Excellent.
No,
Okay, so approval of the meeting minutes. I think did everybody send back comments to Mark? Or to Mike, I mean? Or were there any comments, I guess is a more important question.
you talk
We
about
had
comments
two-
for the meeting.
But yeah, the previous
ahead.
meeting minutes, September 23, that's the next item on our agenda.
We had two edits that we talked about. One is the spelling of Jess Leclerc's name, Leclair, under item 3. And the second is, I think, under item 5, the efficiency campaign. It's not New Haven, but North Haven. I would make a motion that we approve the minutes with those amendments.
So we have a motion on the floor. Somebody want to second it?
I'll second.
Phil, good job. Jumping right in. All right. So let's just say, does anybody oppose that motion? Okay, motion passes by unanimous consent or absence of objection or something like that. All right, let's move on. Update on sustainable CT. You guys have been kind of busy for not being able to get together, huh? Sherry,
Sustainable CT.
yeah, is that your,
No.
is that your item?
No, we've been meeting.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Been busy.
Oh, I thought you
You've
said
been-
we haven't been able to get
No,
together.
you've been busy for not being able to really do much in person.
Oh, in person, yeah. Wednesday night, we have Abe Helding Solorio from Sustainable CT will be joining us to give a presentation on the Community Match Fund. And so if you know anybody who might be considering doing a project that wants to, either they can tap in or just watch it on SCTV.
Cool. Anything else for the update?
That's it for now.
Okay, discussion, additions, subtractions?
I don't know, did you want to mention that we have a replacement on the committee?
Yeah,
Or is that
so
not
someone
official?
has stepped, but it's not official yet. Tom responded to me this afternoon and said there needs to be an official letter of resignation and a letter sent
Okay.
into the town clerk. So until
Yeah.
that's done, I can't really say there's a new member yet, I guess.
Good.
There's a new member on the Sustainable CT Commission.
Yes, because somebody is possibly resigning. So,
Possibly. Okay. We'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it with rumor and innuendo for the moment.
yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, we're really rocketing through this agenda. Discussion of topics raised at earlier public audiences. So the first one is endorsement of a carbon fee and dividend legislation, and the second is climate emergency. You want to take these one at a time? Let's start with A. So let's just open the floor for discussion on these. I have thoughts, but I don't want to dominate, so because I do that. Anybody else have thoughts? Because I got stuff to say.
I guess that I would open it with the question, sort of where we left off at the last meeting, and that was a general sense that while we may, as individuals, support the carbon fee and dividend, we did not see it as a role that the task force needs to take to endorse that, at least not without significant stakeholder engagement. So we kind of punted on that one, or said let's punt on that one, but very much felt that the other idea of the possible declaration of a climate emergency is very much within our remit. So that's where we left off. So I guess the question is any change of heart or any new information or developments to that?
So let me just, I waffle with this, Mark, and I know you and I have talked about this. For me, a carbon fee and dividend legislation, and whether it's that specific piece of legislation or something of that form, I think is a very, very important piece of the solution to the climate situation, right? I mean, what we know, and you can go back to like really fundamental economic theory on this, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff that supports it, is right now, we do not pay the full cost of anything that generates carbon. You know, in our products, in our lives, in our energy supply, any of this, we pay some variable fraction of that cost. So I think it's important to recognize that carbon fee legislation of some sort, carbon tax, cap and trade, pick it, is a critical piece of the solution. And I kind of want to go on the record as saying that. I think from the standpoint of federal legislation, I tend to agree with what Mark said, that the Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force is not really the venue to take something like this on unless, you know, the town is faced with a digital question, right? Let's say there was a federal piece of legislation that required endorsement by some fraction of the municipalities in the country, or the state had to step up and they were polling the municipalities. Then I think it would be appropriate for us to weigh in and say, yeah, we really think you ought to support this. But absent a specific piece that requires input from the town through the state, kind of through the command structure, if you will, I don't think that's our bailiwick. So I throw that out for consideration. I do think it's really important that we be on the record as agreeing that there's a piece of the pricing puzzle missing, and that there should be some accounting for the cost of carbon.
So, if I may, I think I brought this point up last time, but potentially in declaring, if we were to declare a climate emergency, is there opportunity to make that line, that statement, as part of that declaration? And saying, you know, we have a climate emergency, and now as a way to address that, amongst other things, one of those things that we want to strongly support and is a carbon tax type of legislation.
So I guess I think that could be that but it's, so for me, the issue that should be front and center for us with this climate emergency is there's a climate emergency, right? I mean, it's not because we don't pay it, it's because of a lot of reasons, right? And I think, you know, having talked to Susan offline some, and, you know, some of her team, it's really clear that part of what we have to do is just get people to stand up and say, holy crap, this is important. It's not 10 years out, it's now. We have to do something about it. The climate tax or the carbon tax, carbon fee, dividend, whatever you want to do, that is a potential subset of the solutions that are available to a climate emergency, in my view. So I think, I don't want to kind of mix what we're doing. I think it's going to be a really important thing and something that we can do and we should weigh in on to help the town figure out how to properly declare a climate emergency in Simsbury. The rest of it, I think we should defer on for the moment until, you know, some solutions come on the table that Simsbury is directly engaged in. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Yeah,
I like Philip's point. You know, if we're doing this declaration of climate emergency, let's reconsider it then. Is it part of you know, a broader action item of we want to advocate both at this and national level for the types of policies that will help get us out of this?
And is it something that we can coordinate with other towns in Connecticut to lobby the state to be a part of? You know, I mean, I think there's a lot around this whole idea of a carbon fee, but what I don't want to do, it's controversial even though it shouldn't be, right? Start talking about carbon tax, you know, that kind of stuff. Start playing Democrat versus Republican, as stupid as that is. I think we have a much better shot if we leave that alone and just talk about a climate emergency. Let's get that on the table. Let's get that executed. And then let's start talking about solutions. You know, what action can the town take? Does that work?
Yep.
And I mean, I think if we can get, when we get to, let's just say when, because I think we'll probably vote on this shortly, but when we get to helping the Board of Selectmen declare, you know, write a declaration of climate emergency, this toolkit that Susan's provided is going to be really invaluable. There's a lot of examples out there. There are, you know, the climate emergency thing is really amorphous. You know, they can include what they want. You know, what are you comfortable with saying? You know, what should this declaration say? So I think, Sherry, what you got?
Well, I know that this was probably discussed at the initial presentation with Susan and the other folks from the group when they did the full presentation with the graphs and everything. But what I was wondering is if the town of Simsbury declares a climate emergency, what does that do? Does that kick in something? Does something take place as a result of the declaration? And if it were to go at the state level, you know, the state, what does that entail? Does that kick in something as far as funding, or, you know, I'm just asking in general, does something happen once the declaration is made?
So I think the short answer is no. I think the short answer is there's no rules for this. This is something that's a kind of a grassroots thing that this group that Susan's working with is pushing for. Really, it can be as stringent or as loose as the Board of Selectmen decides to make it. You know, they could say, for example, we declare a climate emergency and commit Simsbury to being part of efforts to find solutions to that, which has no force of law. It has no actions associated with it. It's more of a philosophical declaration. Right? Susan, wave your arms if I misrepresent this. On the other side of the spectrum, Simsbury could say, we declare a climate emergency, and as a result, we're now going to direct the zoning board, and I'm making this up, so it could be completely illegal, but you know, we direct the zoning board to impose fees for new developments that don't include net zero options. You know, we declare a climate emergency and we authorize the Board of Finance to levy a tax on the high carbon emitters. So, I mean, I think there's a huge continuum of what they could choose to do. My sense is it will have to be at best revenue neutral here in the town. I mean, this is a very difficult time for towns. I do not expect a climate emergency declaration that will then allocate funding for actions. I think it'll kind of be like,
I think,
go find your money.
I think a really good example, and Bob, you pointed this out to us, is what the town did on racism. I'm going to share my screen.
Yes.
This is the document. This is the resolution that, at least this was the draft. I presume this is what actually got approved by the Board of Selectmen. Resolution declaring racism a public health crisis, and it's got all the whereases, but then the resolve. There's eight sort of asks or steps that we're asking the town to take. These are generally, they're not a specific ordinance or a specific policy. They're more principles, but this is a great, I think, example for us. You know, if we were doing wanted to declare a climate emergency, then we would have, you know, some steps that, what does it actually mean? What are we asking, you know, to respond to your question, Sherry? What do we want to change? So I think, you know, and if you thumb through this document that went around, there's a lot of work. I'm going back now, meetings and work that this group did. So I think we shouldn't underestimate, if we really want to do this right and get some community buy-in, that there's a lot of work here.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a great way to approach it too. Hopefully we can take the same course with this, even down to, you know, in the number of bullets, like the things that mean. This is the fact, and now what does that mean for us?
Yes.
And there's things
Yes.
we can do in there, and you can cast a broad net. You could keep it high level, but I think largely it should point towards like the strategy for resolving, or like things that we could begin to think about to get us moving in the right direction towards resolving.
Yeah, I think, Mark, you know, it could include a bullet about, you know, continue to develop and implement the Simsbury energy plan, clean energy plan. You know, it could be, you know, lobby through municipal organizations, whether it's the COG or whatever, for state action on reducing carbon output to the climate. I think there's a whole list, there's a laundry list of things that they could do. I think the reason I sent that to you when I saw that the declaration of kind of racial emergency, if you will, was it is the perfect model for us to go forward. You know, I had questions whether the town would consider, you know, something like, okay, this is real, this is an emergency, we must act on it. And then pop, that thing came up. And I was like, okay, this is, you know, A, I agree with it. B, let's use it as a model. So I got no problem following that. I guess the question in my mind now is, where do we go from here, right? So let's assume that we're going to have a motion at the end of this discussion to begin work on a presentation to the board to facilitate declaration of a climate emergency.
I think it's always best to kind of start with what we really want to achieve in the end. So I would start to put together a very rough draft of what this resolution would look like. I'll try to take a first stab. And, you know, I don't think we were at the point. Hey, Tim.
Hey,
Hello, Tim.
sorry. I got the days mixed up. Apologize.
No worries.
All right, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Could be like last week, we'll say, okay, so now we're adjourned, Bob joined. No.
That's fine.
Yeah, we're in the middle of discussing the climate emergency item.
Right.
So Mark, I think you're right on the money there. If you will take that first crack, I'll be glad to be a reviewer. You know, and I'm much better at beating up other people's work than doing my own.
Yeah, and I don't think we want to start wordsmithing it, but I think we want to, you know, what principles, what broad types of steps do we want in there? So I think,
But I think it's going to require like working group meetings, not like an official meeting, but just like a, you know, to work on this. Like you're saying, there's a lot of research that went into putting together that declaration. And so it's going to take some time and additional group meetings, just working group meetings to put that together.
yep.
Yeah. Yep. Since we're such a large group, we probably don't really need to constitute a subcommittee, but just kind of like a couple of us get together and do it.
Right. Agree.
So for the purposes of this meeting and the minutes of this meeting, do we want to entertain a motion of some sort to like kind of, I don't mean to be silly, but to put this in motion?
I'm not sure we need a motion yet.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with it either way. I just want to make sure that and maybe a motion is too much of a telegraph of what's coming.
Well, the other thing too is that we've also got the energy efficiency campaign that we want to launch. So, you know, I guess, you know, I'm thinking maybe we need to get that initiated first or kick that off first, get that organized, and then start putting together the declaration.
Yep, I think that's next on the agenda.
Unless you think we could do both.
We can't exactly divide and conquer.
There is a form in the document on page 15 that would allow the committee to speak for things that were within your interest area of clean energy and endorse the idea of a climate emergency without drafting an entire document. That might be a starting point.
That's interesting. I guess my thought is if we're going to present this to the board, we have to get them like at least something that's a rough straw man rather than asking them. I guess I'm a little concerned that if we just don't, there's no telling what's going to come back. And then
this document here,
so
we've got New Haven, we've got New Britain, New York City, I think Middletown. Very recent.
There's a form on page 15 that is just, it's less than a declaration. It's just an endorsement of the concept of declaration on page 15. Yeah, there you go. What specific actions would you like to see? And I endorse this resolution, the idea of a resolution. Just a suggestion.
So this would be for us to get businesses and other stakeholders to endorse.
Well, yeah, or actually, I guess the committee could be an endorser as a first step.
Yeah, I guess I see this, maybe I'm just reading it backwards, but I see this as kind of an after. I want to see the climate declaration happen.
Okay.
And then go out and gin up, okay, businesses, what do you think we should do about this? What actions would be in your wheelhouse? Does that make sense to you guys, or is that should we do that first? You know, Jerry, I hear your concern about resources, the resource allocation here. I think the efficiency campaign is something that's front of mind, it's front burner, it's something that's going on now. there's the rebates and everything are so good right now that we don't want to let that languish. That said, it can also be part of, what are we going to do about a climate emergency? Is we're going to do efficiency. We all know it's like a 10-to-1 bang for the buck, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, what is your feeling? Now, you've been closer to this energy efficiency campaign than have I. What's your feeling about how much time is remaining before we can launch something? How much work is still out there?
Why don't we move on to that? Because that's next on the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is if we, so all right, before we leave this, are we all committed to the idea of moving forward toward a Board of Selectmen declaration of climate emergency in whatever form that ends up being? Is anybody not? Let me put it that way. Okay. So let's close this discussion of climate emergency. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sherry.
Wait a minute. I think it needs to come from Susan's group to the Board of Selectmen. We could endorse it, like she was saying, like she showed us that form, because if we were to endorse the possibility of a resolution, it doesn't require us to do all of the research right yet, because they already have the research and they can present what they have. And maybe from that, the Board of Selectmen could then come back to us and say, not only what do you think, but like what's important, what sounds like it might be important to the town, kind of work it the other way around. Because they've done a lot of the legwork already. So rather than us having to do that research just right yet, yes, we can put it as part of the energy efficiency campaign, because if we have an energy efficiency campaign, it's great for many reasons, financial reason, but also because of the climate emergency, right? So that's one of the benefits. But as far as to the Board of Selectmen, I think Susan's group should present to the Board of Selectmen in as far as requesting a declaration.
I think it's maybe a little bit like the issue that we took up recently on community choice aggregation, where Peter Millman came, presented the concept to us, gave us a really good detailed understanding of it. We then approved a resolution, or recommended a resolution to the Board of Selectmen that we recommend that the board approve this resolution, which is in favor of the state legislation. And then at that Board of Selectmen meeting, Peter and we, if I recall correctly, presented together. So it could be similar, where citizens climate lobbyists come to us, we kind of process it, and then we go to the Board of Selectmen together.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going, Mark, is I don't think we should just say, okay, good idea, go present it. I think as the Clean Energy Task Force of the town, kind of the, if you will, duly appointed representatives, I think it's incumbent on us to facilitate this. I think it's probably, there's like a little hybrid going on here, right? I think what Mark's suggesting, kind of combined with your idea of a working group, is let's get together with Susan and Roger and whoever and help them to draft something that seems like it would be palatable, that we are comfortable co-presenting to the board, and in the meantime move forward with energy efficiency. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I don't think it's on us to go like write the thing.
And back to your question, Bob, and I'm not sure exactly how each of us understood it, but I am very much in favor of giving serious consideration to a climate emergency declaration. I'm not there yet where I absolutely know that I want to do it. I have some reservations. We've always said we're more successful when we go to the board and we go to stakeholders, not leading with the climate, but leading with how we're going to save money and these are good decisions to make. So we're actually we're going to lead the climate crisis. So that's not the way we've tended to operate. Having said that, so those are my reservations. Having said that, I think it's changing, and I see the value of a bolder statement like this, how it might actually help us move forward. So that's just kind of where I am.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I think that doesn't change anything about what I said. I think it's the idea, like what I'm trying to get to before we close this item is, are we all committed to continuing to explore this as a committee, working with Susan and her team to, come to where we come to? But we think there's meat here. We think there's something that's important for us to work on.
Yep.
Does anybody not?
Yep.
Is this to get more traction with what we presented to the Board of Selectmen when we put together our PowerPoint of certain areas that we could focus on? Or is the drive of this to get them to think more about the green energy that we could be implementing?
I wouldn't say it's a direct, to get support. I think every piece of this puzzle is to build awareness. I mean, what do we do as a Clean Energy Task Force? We build awareness of things that people might not have thought of, right? I mean, part of the discussion, as Mark just alluded to, is we want to bring things to make people know it's not just a super liberal green tree hugging bunch of crap, that there is financial benefit here. There is business logic. There is sound science behind this. It's not just about waving your arms and saying, love your Mother Earth. True as that may be, right? But the climate emergency, I think, puts it all under an umbrella. We have a climate emergency. This is not going to wait. California is on fire. The Gulf Coast is going underwater. There are things that are happening right now, and we can't just keep saying, oh yeah, this is something for the future. We have to make a statement. So anyway, I don't want to get, I get too deeply philosophical and passionate about it, but I just want to make sure that we're all kind of on board that we want to take the next card here. So we continue to put this on the agenda each month until we get to a resolution, until we have something to present to the board. Or the committee, the commission here as a group says, nope, not us. So we good with this? We keep it on the agenda. Yep. We keep exploring it.
I'm good with it.
Dr. Tanka shows up.
Hey, I didn't know what time. It was early.
Did you get my message?
I just got into town, so I came back for the meeting, but I didn't realize it was early.
No worries, man. Try not to look so relaxed. You already look like you've been sitting there for 5 hours, man. You look totally.
I know. And I have my fresh beverage.
All right, good. Take the edge off. All right, so let's move on to the next discussion about residential efficiency. And we'll have another action. We'll have another agenda item next month on this same climate emergency.
So Phil and I met with Tom Roy the other day, and I think Ray, you were there as well, to talk a little bit about how we might do this. And Phil, I don't know, do you want to report on this, or you want me to?
I can. It gets a little loud around here from time to time, so I'll apologize for that in advance. We've been talking through with Tom, as Mark said, and really trying to understand what our approach for the home efficiency campaign should be, and it seems like where we're pointing to is to direct people to the Wise Energy telephone number. And in doing that, we can, I guess the one thing we're not doing now, per our discussion last meeting, was incorporating those vendors who would then maybe be the face of this campaign, and even the fund, I guess the charity aspect of that. We think that by one thing we found was there wasn't any vendors in Simsbury. So one thing we would have to do is then pick who the vendor should be, or the preferred vendor should be, to go through and do this home energy audit. And we identified there could be some risk to doing that. So instead, we thought by using the Wise Energy number, it will put them in touch with whomever works best for them based on the conversation they have with the associate at the end of that phone, rather than put the town, at the forefront of making that decision. We will lean on the organization who's responsible for doing that. Our goal would be to get those numbers of home energy audits. I think it was it 20 something %, Mark? Do you remember offhand? It's like,
Is it 16?
maybe it was 16. It was fairly low, but the idea would be we want to get that number to increase. So these are the number of homes who have taken advantage of the home energy audit, and we thought a few ways to do this. So we've actually got a conversation with Eric Willman tomorrow to discuss this a little more in depth and better determine next steps. But we think it could look something like a letter that goes out to town, something on social media, a few things on social media to promote this, some lawn signs if we can swing it, partnerships with our realtors, and getting their clientele to look into this as well as the community television. So using SCTV and providing some more in-depth detail around the importance of this, what the audit is, and the long-term benefits. And so the team is putting this detail together now. We're exploring a bunch of options, but I guess we're somewhat early on, as we've not yet gone out. Tom's drafted that letter, and my next step was to get that meeting with Eric. So that's where we are now. I know that's a lot. So what questions do you guys have?
Bill, you were right. It was households we got 27%, and businesses 59% have participated in energy efficiency, but still a lot of room to go.
Yeah, so clearly a ton of opportunity, especially with the funding out there, and as we were looking like insulation cost at near zero, if not zero, and so it just seems like a ton of opportunity, and hopefully we can message it appropriately and get get people doing it and excited about it, because in the long run, in aggregate, I should say, it certainly helps, and it all adds up.
I mean, the big decision that we made, with Tom's guidance was, let's not do the style of campaign they did in North Haven, where they pick 2 installers, town recommends these installers, they then ask for a donation to a charity. By the way, North Haven is dead in the water right now. The town is unwilling to launch this campaign because of concerns for COVID. And that they're endorsing an installer. So if we were to go about the North Haven route right now, it would take us weeks, maybe months to get this thing going. We got to get the letter approved. The lawyers have to look at. We've got to vet installers, contractors. But this allows us to just get going much more quickly. Always, as Phil says, we're just sending people to the telephone line.
And we would do this. I mean, in other words, it'd be posts on the Simsbury website, it'd be social media. I mean, I think that's a great campaign right now. because you don't really want to try and engage people one-on-one. And I got to tell you, it hasn't started yet, but I think that New Haven or North Haven is right on the money. Somebody's going to sue somebody one of these days. And it's a service person's going to visit a home. The home's going to get COVID, and that's going to be ugly. So I think we are well advised to steer clear of that.
So we're going to meet, I think, tomorrow, Phil, with Eric Wellen to kind
Yeah.
of get his input, see if he'd like to maybe go on Simsbury Community TV, just to promote the thing. We got some marketing materials from Eversource. I think I know that I shared those with the entire group yet. I'll do that. And Tom has to put down the first draft of this letter, so we should be able to get this thing up and running fairly quickly.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by Tim's family here.
Mark, was there any discussion about the panel discussion that you wanted to have on SCTV and when you wanted to do that?
Yes, and that was one of these we're going to talk to Eric about tomorrow. So let's see if I think if he wants to go on, that could be a whole show, or maybe he plus somebody from Eversource. So yes, we definitely want to do that, and I think at least as the first general session, we should be able to do that quickly, because the basic information is readily available, but people don't know it. People don't have it.
Were you able to lock down anybody from Eversource to participate in a panel?
We have two, yes, and I'm not sure whether we would use that person or like Larry Rush from UI or Lorenzo from because I think even though Larry Rush is UI, he was really good.
Yes, he was.
So we haven't decided who yet, but we have a couple of people to choose from.
But I mean, who really cares what utility they're from? If you got a good spokesperson, who was the guy, Mark, that was on that call? The call that you urged us to get on, where they had like a couple hours worth of people present. There was
that was the call.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
That guy was fabulous.
Yep, that's Larry Rush from UI.
Yeah, he was really good. If you get him on a panel and somehow get people to tune in, tuning into SCTV is not high on a lot of people's lists. I mean, if Eric was willing to do this, then Eric, and then hand it over to Larry Rush, would be a great show. But you'd also want to simulcast it on Eric's Facebook Live channel, because he does a lot of Facebook videos and stuff. He's got a pretty good following on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Sherry, did we invite you all tomorrow? We should. It's 3:00.
Yep, I have it.
I don't know that I have.
Okay, good.
I don't know that I'll be able to. I'm just getting out of something at 3:00, but I will try if you want me to.
I think we're good. This is just kind of our little subcommittee to work out the nuts and bolts of this.
Cool. I'm just as happy not to.
Good.
All right. Should we move next agenda item?
Yep.
Going once, going twice. Done. All right. Sign on letter to state officials of the Connecticut Energy Network. Whose item is that one? Is that one yours, Mark?
Yeah, I can put it up on the screen if you like. This is an initiative that, again, Kenny Foscue from North Haven has initiated. And it's that group that, Bob, that did that webinar. It's the Connecticut Energy Network. So it's, it used to be Melissa Everett. She's not so involved. Patrice Gillespie, Guy West. So it's Clean Water. It's basically Clean Water Action and PACE are doing this now. And the sense of the letter is that this group of clean energy advocates have a lot of people willing to help. They got a lot of knowledge. They're engaged in their communities, and we would like to do more. So it's going to Governor Lamont and Deputy Commissioner of Energy, Vicki Hackett, with copies to the people you see listed here, and a bunch of local clean energy task forces are signing on. I can turn the page in a bit. You can kind of just. I think it's. It was a letter written committee, so it's gone through lots of iterations, and probably not everybody's 100% satisfied with it. But I think it's a good letter that really points out this group. Come on, let us help. Let us help more. This was the picture. I think it was the last time we met in person.
Yeah, and stop taking our money, I think it says.
Right. The raids. So if you look, you can see Sherry in that picture right on the, and I'm in the back holding the pace sign.
Yeah, I don't have the magnifying glass out right now.
And I sent this around, but so I guess the question would be, are we willing to put our name onto this? We're actually asking for representation in the Energy Efficiency Board, which would be really great, I think.
I damn sure would.
We're saying to them to use this as a resource, right? We're saying to the state to use this as a resource, just like we're saying to the town and the other committees in town to use us as a resource as it relates to energy decisions. The Board of Education, the town.
I really like the letter. I mean, it really kind of, it endorses the work we do. We are the primary on-the-ground grassroots promoters, marketers, educators, and implementers of these programs. We know our communities well and are especially interested in connecting hard-to-reach residents and businesses with Connecticut's numerous energy conservation programs.
Yeah, I think importantly, it lets us define ourselves and what we see our role and responsibility as.
Yeah, I make a motion that we sign on to the Connecticut Energy Network letter.
I'll second that. You're on mute, Bob, I saw.
I'm talking to my mute button. That's fun. Wow, that was a good speech, too. Okay, sorry. Zoom problems. So we have a motion on the floor. It has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's move to a vote. All in favor of signing on to this letter as stated in the motion, signify by saying aye, not muted.
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. We will sign on, Mark. Do you want us to, is that a individual sign on, or is it, will you sign as the Clean Energy Task Force for Simsbury?
Right, as the Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force.
Good.
Yeah.
Like they've got, yep.
Excellent. Thank you for spearheading that. That's really a kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I really can't take any credit for spearheading it, but I'm at least serving as liaison.
Well, you did in this forum. All right, good deal. Next item, other business. Do we have any other business other than dinner?
Just a couple things that we want that are left over or that we talked about last time is we want to update the energy plan. So we should all take a look at that, and particularly the action list. I don't think we need to rewrite the whole plan, but some of the actions we said we're going to do in 2020. We actually did a couple, but let's all just take a look at that in our spare moments. And then the other one was, what was I going to say? I lost my thought. Not the energy plan. I can't remember. Must not have been important. There was something else we were going to do. I'll remember as soon as we get off the call. What was
It's
Oh, I know.
mainly were you going to say it's mainly the timeline delays because, the actions that we were going to take in 2020 that we now need to push back?
Yeah, and I think we should rethink. So I think it should be an annual exercise to dust the thing off, and just nothing else, change the years and take off the things you did and move some forward. Some I think maybe could take off the list. One that, for example, that I want us to consider for next year is a heat pump campaign. Pace is doing the first one in the state, a pilot in Branford, and so we'll know more about it by then. But so then the other thing I was going to mention is I just don't want to take this off the table, and I don't want to miss the opportunity. We want to, and I know, Bob, there's not a lot of money available, but we really do want to advocate in December for at least a budget for an energy manager consultant. And I think December is the time to do that.
Do you think that, I think that's a really great idea, and I have always believed just intrinsically that an energy manager would pay for his or her own cost, especially a shared one. If we took split it 2 ways with 2 towns or whatever, I think it would do. What's the young lady that works West Hartford, lives in Simsbury, Bundle Energy? Catherine, yes, Catherine Deviney. Do you know if she has any data on that? Does she save her own cost?
I know I've heard of anecdotes, and I bet you she's got, if we asked her, and she's shared with us her job description.
Yeah. I would love to be able to put a spreadsheet together that shows projects taken on, aggregate savings, burdened cost of half-time energy manager, and see, is that a net positive or net negative number? Because if you want to advocate for that in the budget and you back it up with that, why wouldn't they do that?
Yep.
Are you in touch with Catherine?
No, I haven't talked to her in a while, but I'm sure if as we are preparing that recommendation, we can do that. We can reach out to Catherine.
Cool. Two comments on your idea of updating the energy plan. One, I think we should all look at it in terms of COVIDizing our actions. That's going to become a word if it's not already, or I'll claim it and patent it, whatever. So we have to look at what we had planned and things we wanted to do and look at them in light of COVID, because COVID will not be going away anytime soon. And the second thing is regarding your comment about taking some things off the list. I would much rather move things that have been done to an accomplished list. So it becomes kind of a running tally of here's what we plan to do, here's what we're doing, here's what we've done.
And we have that list, right? I mean, Susan Van Cleef pulled some of that together, and I think Tom presented a lot of that at the Board of Selectmen meeting. So we have kind of a running list.
Yeah. So we should, and I think that should almost become an appendix to the energy plan.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So we're good with that. Any other business? Any open forum, which is sort of like other business, but not. Going once, going twice. The chair would be thrilled because he's hungry to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Tim gets